Go, John.
Thanks, Wes. Kia ora, everybody. Great to see everyone here, and I'd like to say I've got a great view out of my Auckland hotel room window of the Auckland skyline, and yeah, we've been away obviously for a bit of a trip, and probably we'll possibly talk about that a little bit later. But had a great experience, and just I think as a coach, it's experiences that you get in life that help you become better. Some good ones, some not so good, but they're all learning opportunities. And just like tonight, is another opportunity to meet a few new faces and learn a few new things, and go away feeling a bit better about myself. So looking forward to catching up and talking tonight. And yeah, great to be here.
Thanks, Hags. I'm not sure if Wes or Whitney want to follow, or...
Yeah, I'll just say thanks everyone for coming as well tonight. I know it's another night, probably not away from the kids, but certainly doing a bit of rugby when you've done quite a bit this year already. Personally, I really enjoy these sessions. I always learn something myself as well. I'm just really thankful that you've made the time. I don't always know why people would want to listen to me, but certainly keen to share some of my experiences along the way.
Nice, Wes. And lastly, we'll hear from the awesome Whitney Hanson.
Kia ora, team. I'm not sure what view John's looking at. He's in the room next door. I think you need to get out more often, Hags, because the view's not that great out here. But yeah, look, like these two, just really excited to be here and to learn and to listen, like you all are. So thanks for making the time, and thanks for having us.
Awesome, team. Well, the floor is yours, coaches. And with that being said, Adelita Satutu, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks again, Black Fern coaches, for giving us your time. Nice to see you, Wesley.
Hey, Lita.
Behaving, and you behaved on tour. I've just got a question because I'm the leading question. So the first one is, what was the purpose of the tour? And did you hit those markers or goals?
Who do you want to answer that? Do you have anyone specific?
Oh, the floor is open.
Well, I'll start, and the others can just add in as they want to. One of the big purposes of the tour, and when we were desperate to tour, is getting some experience playing rugby again. So some of our players hadn't played Test rugby in 2 years, and some of our players, I think of someone like Liana Mckenzie too, who did a fantastic job on tour. I think she's had 4 FPC games this year. She broke her leg last year, so she didn't play a hell of a lot of FPC then either. So I think on average, I think the average is 7 games this year pre-tour for our players. So, we were desperate to get in front of some international competition that, to see where we were at firstly, but also give players that experience. In an ideal world, we would have played Australia and Canada before going over to England and France. That didn't pan out with COVID. So, we were, I wouldn't say stuck, but we had to make do with playing some very tough teams straight off the bat. And for some players, in some cases, it was like their 3rd game of rugby for the year. So, we were desperate to get some experience. We were desperate to get together as a team. We were really desperate to get away from New Zealand. I always find in my years with the Black Ferns, whenever we go away for 3 weeks or so, we get massive growth out of the players really quickly, more so than any camp or even any domestic series we play. So, and then behind that, we wanted to blood some players. We wanted to give some new players that experience, but also find out where some of those new players were at. So I think in terms of those things, we definitely achieved our goals, but at the end of the day, we're the Black Ferns and we need to win. So I think all of us probably have a little moment every day where we remember that we've just lost 4 in a row. And it's not a good feeling.
I think all I could add to that really is, yeah, obviously we want to win every Test match that we play, but there was a but, isn't there? Sometimes, performance and outcome you want to get the outcome. Sometimes your performance isn't quite what you want, and that's an uncontrollable. And I think we have to also give credit to what's happening offshore. And perhaps they are the benchmark that we've got to aspire to now. So we potentially haven't quite got to where we wanted to be, but we're better to find that out now than in 12 months' time. So one of our purposes of touring was to find out where we're at. So, you know, a positive is that we do know where we're at, and it's not good enough. So we've got some work to do, some serious work to do, and looking forward to that challenge. So I think you can't just put the black jersey on and win as a result. And I think a number of people found that out on tour. So that's a realization that some of them perhaps didn't have. So yeah, there's been great learnings out of it. And no, we didn't achieve what we wanted to achieve, but we know where we're at, and I think that's you know, the fact of life. And you know, talking with Fozzie on the way home, they were disappointed to drop a couple of tests as well. But the reality of high performance sport is that you perhaps you're not going to win every game that you play, and we just have to learn how to be better, put things in place, take the learnings out of it, and hopefully good enough for us to do what we need to do in 12 months' time.
Thank you. Am I allowed to follow up with another question, Vani?
I can't say no to you.
Okay, thank you. So you talked a bit about the new girls. How did the old girls stack up? You know, did they bring their experience, or did you find that some of them are past it, or I don't know? You know, I mean, you talk about experience for the new ones, but how did the old ones or the experienced ones go?
Go with me. No, I'm kidding. Look, as I said before, we were undercooked, and certainly some players would have found that harder than others, and some players would have found out that, you know, maybe they've got to work a little bit harder if they want to keep wearing the black jersey.
And that's everybody.
Yeah, well, you've got to perform. I mean, if you're not performing, you can't expect to get picked again the following year, right? So yeah. That's the same for everyone. So, and like I said, we're undercooked as a whole, pretty much. Some of the younger players, I mean, some of the young girls, even though we're saying, you know, they did this great job, they made a lot of errors as well. So it's not like anyone was perfect on this tour. But yeah, we're definitely undercooked, and some people would have found out where they're at.
I think Wes and team, it would be fair to say that there's accountability on all fronts and not just the players. So some of the senior players were very, very good, some not so very, very good. And the same with some of the younger players. So there's a wide spectrum that your players perform on, and the same with us as coaches. You know, we'd have to say that we were rusty as well. And you know, whilst I wouldn't, you know, shout that out to the media, I think in this group, certainly knowing that, you know, you've got to have competitive environments and working hard in competitive environments to be able to grow yourself and grow others. So, you know, but there were some mitigating circumstances in everything that we did on that tour. And if you look at the Auckland region and players coming out of lockdown to go into a test match where they're playing the best in the world, is not good preparation at all. In fact, it's piss poor preparation. So yes, they could have been fitter, some of them. Yes, they could have done other things, but it was really challenging times, and that's not an excuse. That's just a fact. So I think, you know, we've got to put that into perspective, and maybe, you know, cut a little bit of slack for some of them, but some will need to improve.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Eddie. Well, we might have time to come back around. So, Adelita, just keep your thinking cap on. Thank you, Wes and Higgs. Whitney, we might pull you in, but also I'll throw to Tia Clark, if you're happy to address the floor.
I just have one question. So, if you were to go back to like the start of your coaching career, what is like one or two pieces of advice that you would give yourself after everything that you know now?
Good question.
Go, Whitney.
Well,
I was going to say, we'll go to Whitney because she's, yeah.
I feel like I'm still at the beginning of mine.
I can't remember the start of mine, so you've got to go.
probably one of the things that someone said to me recently, which stuck and which was pretty cool, is often you get presented opportunities and you feel like maybe you're not ready for, or that you can't tick all the boxes yet. But you can either take the opportunity and grow in the spaces that you need to, or you can let it pass and you may not get another one for 3 or 4 years, and by that time you've been ready for 2 of them and you've missed the moment. So that's probably one that's sitting with me at the moment, is being conscious of having the right stuff to not let down the people that you're in front of, but also being brave, and particularly as a female coach, I think, to put your hand up and take opportunities, knowing that 75% of learning is on the job learning. So grow in the space and be brave to do that.
I just add to that, probably from my perspective, always don't afraid to be vulnerable. You think you have to know everything, and you don't. In fact, your players know a lot. Use your players, but you still have to coach.
Yeah, I think that's good advice from Hags. Well, both of them really, but probably the one that I would go back to as well is you don't have to know everything. In fact, once you've been coaching for a while and you do start knowing a few things, you actually pretend you don't know everything, because it builds relationships. It builds a sense of we're in this challenge together and let's help each other out. Sometimes you might even know the answer, but pretend you don't, just to build that relationship. So I think it's really good advice to not feel like you need to know everything. You don't have to answer every question. Let's do this together.
How was that, Tia?
That was perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. We'll go with Tracy. The floor is yours, mate.
Oh, kia ora tātou. It's my first year coaching women's. I did the North Harbour, helped out with the North Harbour hibiscus side. Previously doing Friends in Auckland and New Zealand Māori under 20s. But yeah, really enjoyed it. But I noticed the difference, a lot of difference, is the professionalism now that we, well, I guess having people in professional circles and women's across around the world. Do you think this result will actually accelerate our professional program? I know we've got the Super next year, which is only a really short program, but do you think we actually have to reassess that as New Zealand Rugby and look to accelerate that professional program if we can, to get the girls in longer with you guys?
Tracy, I would say wholeheartedly yes. I think the investment that France and England have put into their game is massive, and players been full time and game, and also in the coaching support. I remember being in France. Was it 3 years ago? We went to one of the clubs there, Grenoble, and they had, as a club, had coaching their players, 2 of them full time. That was just for a club, so that was three years ago. So the investment's been taking place for a long time now up in the Northern Hemisphere, and so I think and I think there's the desire is definitely there in New Zealand Rugby. I have no doubt about that, and it's just a matter of putting the pieces together. And we're seeing next year with Ilpiki and the support that's going into the woman at the higher level is going to happen, and it will take a bit of time. And I think the biggest thing for us, and me in another role that I had last year around the high performance programs, is that we've got to have good people working with our players. It's not like you get your third best strength and conditioning trainer or your fourth best person because that's what's left. We've got to have some of the best working with our top players, and that's the piece that our people that are working in the provincial unions and others need to understand, that we need quality people to get quality outcomes.
I don't have anything to add to that. I think it was well answered.
Okay, awesome. Hey, thank you for your question, Tracy. Thanks, Hags. Fiona Mann. I might just pause you for you. You're gonna have to like unmute. Yeah, there you go.
That work? Sorry. Kia ora everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. I mean, yeah, sure, we lost 4 games in a row, but to hear you guys talking quite honestly and brutally is probably the best way to address it. And I really hope as a nation we can get together and, you know, help you girls on for next year and stuff. I'm just going on with what Tracy was saying about the elitism and stuff. Is there a lot of emphasis on nutrition for the athletes? I think that's very underrated, and I think it's a very important part of being an elite athlete.
We're all sitting here wondering who should answer. Look, we've got a nutritionist for the first time. I think the first time ever a nutritionist has come on tour with us, and that made a huge difference. We've got nutritionists in the provincial union programs, or they're supposed to have nutritionists and get nutrition education. Probably what we're still finding is, you know, we're transitioning from amateur to semi-amateur to professionalism in the women's game in New Zealand still, and you know, players still have habits that are, you know, their own personal habits. So I think the information's out there. How well we're doing at the moment with living those that information is probably the challenge. And I mean, I think back to the New Zealand Sevens team starting 2014, 2015, when they first started getting together, and you know, it was a real battle for them at the time, but you've seen over the years how their body shapes have changed. But I know that at the start it was still a battle for them to get those players to actually understand the difference it was going to make. And if you watch even the New Zealand Women's Sevens team between 2018, 2019, 19, 20, and then at the World Cup, like even their body shapes have changed again in the last sort of 2-3 years as I suppose the penny has dropped for a few of those players, knowing them personally. So look, I think they're getting good advice and information, but without being centralized and being able to really live it every day as a group, there's probably still a bit of a struggle for us to get that going as well as we should.
Yeah, but we, as a grassroots coach, you know, it's got to start here, right? So you've got good habits when you get into that, to your level. So that we need to figure out how to get that out to everyone.
Yeah, and there's some habits in club rugby that, you know, might not be that. I remember coaching a women's club team, or a provincial team actually. I won't mention who it was. And I thought I'd done a whole lot of great work around the culture and the environment, and it was all really good. Pretty happy we won the game, first game, and afterwards the player of the day had to scull a jug. I just couldn't believe that I'd missed one part of the puzzle at that stage, that was still going to be a habit that they were going to have to do. So yeah, I think everyone working together to try and break some of those little habits is probably the key, like you said.
Yeah, I sculled a jug, but that was 20 years ago, right? So I think times have changed.
But he eats steak and cheese pies, so maybe he's not the greatest to ask. But Hags, Whitney, you got anything to add?
No, I think you covered that one, Liz.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you for the question, Fiona.
I'm not answering the next one first, by the way.
We'll throw it to the mighty Northland Cody. Susie Dawson.
Hi team. Adelita stole my first question, of course. So Whitney, I might just chuck one to you because this is my backup question. Hope you don't mind. What were your key learnings, mate, from, obviously you've played, you know, coached at club and under 18s, then into FBC, then into Barbarians, and now at this level, what were you finding was the difference in either yourself and how you prepared, or just the environment, whichever one you want to go with?
I think, well, there's heaps to take away from that, but probably one that stands out for me is relationship between the coach and the athlete, and the role you play as a coach. And obviously it's different depending on the type of session that you're running, but I think you become more of a facilitator where you're actually putting players into scenarios where they're trying to problem solve and discover for themselves, because actually they have a lot of the answers already. So, and then, you know, we had that mix of players with a bit more experience and then younger players coming in. So how do you get that knowledge across everyone? So using experienced players to share with the younger players, some awesome relationships that we saw on tour, the likes of like Carla Hohepa and Patricia Maliapo. And so trying to leverage those things and knowing that that doesn't always have to be you, but you're trying to empower people and get the best out of them. Not that you don't do that in a junior space, but I guess like sometimes down there they don't, and even at provincial level they don't know what they don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, well, there was no like wrong answer really, eh? But no, that was great feedback. Thank you.
Awesome, Suze. Thanks, Whit. We'll go to Stephanie Mckenzie, followed by, hi, Stephanie Mckenzie.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that just dropped to Stephanie Mckenzie used to go to the school I used to work at.
Yeah.
She's an athlete. Anyway, lovely to see you. We need to catch up offline. And then I'll throw to Anna Livingston after Steph. Nice to see you.
Yeah, long time no see. Different space for me, coming from a high performance cycling background and going into the coaching background. I actually got surgery this year, 7-hour surgery. So I'm not playing rugby anymore, which is a bit of a bummer. So I put my passion into learning in the Manawatu, into the Horowhenua region now. So I'm actually coaching, this is I think I'm coaching like under 15s boys. So I'm still learning as I go, which has been an amazing experience so far, first year coaching, because I can't play. So I think my passion is really just going into the coaching. Anyway, sidetrack. Also a teacher, so I just love talking. I think my main thing is like from my experience being in the Cyclones for a little bit, for you guys, what are some activities or ideas in terms of developing the team culture? I know, Wes, you mentioned drinking culture. That's like worldwide with rugby. Like it is a hard thing to change. But other than that, like in terms of developing a team culture, you know, any ideas around that sort of stuff, especially with girls?
Whitney's got some great ideas. She's really good.
I watched Whitney with the Canterbury Under-18s quite a number of years ago, and I was blown away with some of the stuff you were doing there, Whit. So I'm going to throw it to you, Whit. I agree.
Thanks, team. No, I think everyone, or like, there's probably other people on this call that could talk to this this space too. So this one probably is a question for nearly anyone could answer this, I think. But what Wes and Hags are talking to is just in and around having we had a theme with our under-18s group, and I think you got to be careful with theming sometimes, because there's not actually research that's directly attached to the idea of theming, but there is a lot of research attached to the things that are that come with having a theme. So we had a theme of the Mighty Ducks. I don't know if you've watched that movie. If you haven't, anyone, if you've missed that, go and see them, they're awesome. And it was an idea that we just kind of, it was a group of kids who were all coming from different high schools and different backgrounds, and they were a group of kids who were coming together in a short period of time. We dug in to use that for like our values. So I can send you the link to this if you're curious about how ducks fly in a V. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of different things. Like when you fly in a V, you do 75. It's like 75% stronger when you're doing that for efficiency. Things like if one duck gets injured, it never gets left alone. Another one will fly to the ground with it and help it heal before it returns to the group. There's a whole bunch of different stuff in there. So I guess having something that, in whatever way you do it, whether it's through theming or not, but having a set of values that are observable, measurable, and the group can connect with is quite powerful. at a provincial level, like some of the stuff that I've seen done really well has been just stuff around whānau and kai. So everyone loves going out and having a feed, and if you can do that with family and connect people in that way, I think that's quite cool to tie back to what you're trying to achieve. And there's I can't remember what they are off the top of my head, but there's a few S's that you can consider, and different things like what are the significances of your team. So what are the things that you'll measure and celebrate. So it might be if work ethic's one of the things that you're really passionate about in your team and you're trying to drive, then maybe your highlights reel isn't actually all the tries that are being scored. Maybe it's the hit 4 rucks in a row and then got up and tackled someone, and that's what the award's for. Yeah, there's probably heaps of examples I can go into for that, but Wes and Hags, you guys jump on, and there might be some gold sitting out there in the group too.
Where's Hags? Any gold?
Go, John.
Oh no, I was just reflecting back on my coaching career and having seen lots of different themes used over the years, some really good, some not so good, but certainly what they do try to do is bind people together and have them, you know, all sort of paddling in the same direction, and it doesn't need to be you as a coach that has to drive it. I remember with the Canterbury side, Simon Thomas, who was then became the Crusaders S&C, he was very good at driving the theme. It wasn't the head coach necessarily. So if you've got people in your group, in your management group, you know, whether it be a manager or whoever that can do that, then let them do that, you know, as long as obviously it's where you want to go, and also involving the players to help drive it. So once they get ownership of it and once they grab it, you know, it's a very, very strong force. Helps motivation, helps the fun, helps the environment. All that off-field stuff is really, really valuable to help drive on-field performance.
Do you want more, Vance? Is that enough?
Yeah, but I'll go to Stephanie. Would you like to hear from Wesley? Is her question?
I've seen Wes work in the space. I believe, you know, I think it does come down to the relationships as well. It's massive. I think that's one thing that Wes does really well. Maybe a little bit of a change up, maybe a follow-up question. In terms of like keeping the spirit up when you're losing, you know, obviously that's been quite a experience, might be quite fresh. You know, do you do that to a Kanataina? Players take ownership, leaders, and helping the spirit, or do the coaches, you know?
Look, for me, I'll give you an example. I coached Fielding High School a couple of years ago, and I remember getting there, and the players, I asked them what their goal for the year was, which I think is a good thing to do. I think you should also think about what your team rules are going to be, because you need to have some clarity at the start of the year what everyone is going to abide to, whether it's coming to training, etc. But yeah, I got to Fielding High School and I asked the boys what their goal for the year was, and they said it was to win the top 4 competition, the co-ed top 4. And I remember saying to them, I said, that's a shit goal. So if that's the goal, I'm out. And they're all sitting there like that. But in the end, we had a chat around what was important, etc. And our goal ended up being, we wanted all the female staff to come and watch our games. And the idea was that for that to happen, you had to be in class, they needed to have an interest in you. You had to be a good person. Otherwise, they're not going to come watch. But you also had to play good rugby. Otherwise, if you're no good, they're not going to come watch either. But that became our overall goal. So everything was themed, I suppose, around that. What do we have to do to make sure that these female staff come and watch us? And I remember playing the semi-final of the co-ed competition. And when we got back to the changing room after the warm-up, one of the boys said, man, did you guys see all the female staff out there? And to me, that was the win. And in the end, we won the semi and we won the final. But that moment in the changing room for me. So I think setting goals that are not outcome focused, but realistic for your team is the way around that. And you're going to win some, you're going to lose some, but If you've got other goals that are bigger than just winning or losing, then that takes the edge off that.
That's awesome, Wes. Thanks for the double question, Stephanie Mckenzie. Very great. I'm gonna, just before I throw it to Anna Livingston, and then we can get, actually, because we've got time, we can go through our second lot of questions. So those of you who are there, prepare for that. I just wanted to mention also that we will send the recording of our session to you individually so that you can see that. So whether you're taking notes or not, you will be able to pick up some of this in your recording. So yeah, well done. Hey, so Anna, welcome.
Hi everyone. My question is, obviously during the tour there would have been lots of feedback happening. So I was just wondering, what is your feedback process with the players regarding performance and selection, and how does that change when you're on tour in comparison to when you're at home and everyone's all throughout the country?
Go Hags.
Yeah, it's a great question. Feedback. What we did, what come and help me a bit with the backs when we were away, and one of the things we did on probably the first week, what wasn't it, when we discussed with we come up with the plan for the, rather than us having to directly give the players feedback, we got the players to pair up and establish what they call a growth collaborator. So how would they grow as a person? How would they grow as a player? How would they get feedback? So we did it with sort of positional or seniority wise, and we asked the players to watch their games with their trainings and share information with each other, and then at some point share some video clips with us on Huddle as to what they saw in themselves, so that they could give us an opinion as to what they saw, and then we could give them some feedback that way. Quite useful, and particularly in terms of you know, the younger ones didn't have to have that face-to-face conversation with me all the time. It could have been through a screen and through a digital device, and it worked okay. I wouldn't say it was a roaring success, but it's certainly something to build on. So I found that as a method, using Huddle as a good form of feedback, where I could understand them quite clearly what they would see in that particular video clip. And if there's other stuff, then I would share that with them again, either face to face, using Huddle. I did a couple of quick time movies that we popped on Huddle for them to have a look at, so that they could hear my thoughts around the game, and just creating opportunities for the players to talk, and try and listen and hear what they were thinking. And, you know, we have also some quite dominant players that have been around for a while, and they've got some really good knowledge and experience as well. And sort of, I think Whit said before, how we facilitate that information being shared with others, and certainly trying to probably squeeze it up into manageable amounts as well, so that it wasn't a whole lot of information. And I know, particularly around our half times in particular, we tried to ensure that there wasn't a whole lot of messages that went back in terms of feedback. You know, so there might have been 2 or 3 key points, rather than a big conversation with nothing. What did I summarize that? Was there anything else you wanted to add around how we sort of provided feedback with those backs in particular?
I think just one thing that I probably saw both of you guys do really well, and the benefit of being on tour, I guess, is the small conversations, like small and often. It doesn't have to be a big sit down half an hour, and it can look like that at training, or it can look like as a player's looking at a clip. And because everyone's in the same space and everyone was really approachable, we had some really cool team rooms, and it just meant that someone could say, oh, hey, what did you think of this? Or am I in the right place here? So I think that part of your question in and around what's different when you're together and apart, it just allows for more of those types of conversations to happen, and they're really powerful because they're in the moment, like just-in-time learning. So, but yeah, if people are one of these guys, that's not specifically, I get to help be there and help be the conversation with Hags. But as you can imagine, being a line out scrum coach, the feedback I have for the backs is it doesn't really work. Sort of telling someone to get their bind up in the back line. But yeah, being part of that and seeing that, these guys are super approachable, and anyone that wanted to got to see them sort of whenever they could. So that was pretty cool.
Just my 2 cents worth is, I think feedback has to be personalized. So it's all about the relationship with the player. And I know the question was around your process, but I think being flexible with that process is key. And I can remember sitting down with at least 2 players on tour where I had a number of clips for them and had the laptop right there. The laptop never got opened. So their feedback and where they needed to take that conversation wasn't about showing them clips of how they did stuff well or not well. And on the other side of the coin is, sometimes you're not getting anywhere, or I know my player well enough to know this player needs to see it. And so I think, really trying to build a relationship is critical so that they actually trust you. And the second part of that for me is they've got to leave any session with a sense of there's something they can do to be better. And otherwise you just crush them. So I think that's important before even sitting down. An example would be, I spoke to a player earlier this year, didn't get selected. And, one of her feedback things was around, her size. She's not probably big enough for what we wanted at the time. It wasn't for the Black Ferns actually, but part of my conversation was, the Black Ferns captain isn't that big either, but she plays big. And so your work-ons now is to make sure that you play big, and you can do that by doing this, and this. So it would have crushed that player if I said, look, you're just too small, I'm never going to pick you. But by putting it in a different way and having thought about it beforehand, I feel after this, there's stuff that they can do. I think it's really important. Otherwise, they're not going to come back.
Awesome. I love the personalized, player first athlete. Thanks, Anna, for your question. I do have one, and I'm going to ask, it's on behalf of Mel Bozeman, and then we'll fire back through the order. So Adelita, you will come straight after me. So here we go, team. Here's a question on behalf of Mel Bozeman, who is the Whare Palmer Cup coach for Tasman, who also, yes, sorry, I better stop there. Okay, so do you think the high performance academies within the provincial unions are providing you with the type of physical athlete required for the international stage? That is, are they fit and strong enough to effectively compete? So I'm going to throw that to Wes, Hags, and then Whit in that order, if you have anything else to add, guys.
I'd love to give a short answer, but I can't really. The long answer is some academies are doing that better than others. Our players come from different socioeconomic areas. So the academies in the areas where it's easier to get to training, where mum and dad drop them off, where they get 3 meals a day of a good quality and all that, find it a lot easier to produce top athletes than maybe some of the programs where there's lots of people living in a house. We've got a player who sleeps on a couch in the lounge on the Black Ferns tour. So those athletes find it a lot tougher to adhere to some of the things that we're trying to put in place. And then secondly, it's really difficult to judge the overall programs when like I said before, we've had 7 games, I think, some players this year. And as we know, there's different types of fitness. So you can be prepared to play, you can be fit enough to play, but actually being performance ready or having played a number of games to get battle hardened is quite different to just being fit. And we missed a lot of that as well on tour. So it's hard to judge that side of it, but I think some of our programs are doing a fantastic job producing high performance athletes.
I'll just back Wes up, and I mean, to me, it's very much around accountability, both player, program, and people. And I think some, as Wes has said, have challenges. Some of the provincial unions need to look at their program and decide if they want to improve it, and if they don't, then they should step away. But I'm just not sure whether that how can I say this politely? they say the right things, but they've got to do the right things. And I think that's work in progress for some provincial really, really well, and being let down by some players, and a lot are doing it poorly, and the players are really working hard to try to overcome that. So we just need to get the balance between the program and the people working together to get the outcomes that that we all want. I think as we move into a model in 2022 where maybe there's going to be a little bit more support, there'll be more accountability, and hopefully that'll be monitored a lot closer as well. And I think every player has different motivations for playing, and they're all different, and we see that even from, you know, our top number one Black Fern right through to our 34th player, and sometimes there are very valid reasons why a player hasn't been able to get themselves into a position to be able to perform as well as they would like, and other challenges that Wes was alluding to, and in a really challenging environment.
Well, I think those two have covered that one.
I've got the question I would like to chuck back is how do we attract more athletes to want to play rugby? And I don't necessarily have the answer for that, but I think if I think about the New Zealand Sevens program, and I think about Portia Woodman, she didn't come from rugby. Michaela Blyde, to some extent, okay, Gail Broughton, Go for Gold campaign and all that. So all these really, really good female athletes were attracted to come and play, and I'd like to see us attract more players to the game, or more athletes to the game.
I'll call a friend, but I won't. I'm going to throw it to Adelita. And actually, thank you, coaches, for answering that question. It's good feedback. Eddie.
Well, Wesley, we girls that come to Howard College play netball and have left playing rugby. So we keep giving those opportunities. A little bit of a clash for next year when we have got athletes that might have to choose. So that might anyway, that's another story. But my question, so how do you those kids that you talk about, or the women that you talk about, the young ones and the old ones with those challenges, how when they leave the tour, how are you going to address those challenges so that they are getting ready for the next step? You know, the sleeping on the couch or the nutrition. How are you going to make sure that they're ready and they get selected for the next, for our World Cup? Go around and knock on their door and kick their butts, or what do you do?
Wesley, do you want to go?
No, you go.
Go, John.
Go, John.
Well, we've got a group. All the players have been met with whilst away by the performance team. So the strength and conditioning, the wellness group, and looking at where they are currently, and sent away with some plans. That's all put into a central platform and smarter base, so the provincial unions can see what's in there. We as coaches will meet with the players over the next week while we're in MIQ, talk about their technical, and send them away with an action plan that they will need to adhere to carry them on with their progress. We're also in the process of establishing contracts for 2022. So we will be offering contracts to players that we think are committed and the type of player that we want for 2022. Those that don't get contracts, there'll still be a pathway for them through Super Rugby and through their PUHP programs. But they'll have some pretty clear guidelines as to what we expect from them. And then we will link in with the providers and the provincial unions to ensure that their plan, the players' plan, is adhered to and seen, and we will be monitoring that to ensure that they do make that progress and reach those benchmarks that we've set them.
Are there any other girls outside the squad that you took that you're?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's so obviously there was a number of girls that were left behind because of injury. That will come into our mix, and there's certainly a number of players that were very unlucky not to be selected. So they're all in the mix for further honours for 2022. So yeah, it's pretty much an open book at the moment as to who wants to put their hand up and be selected for 2022.
Cool. Lots of conversations.
Yeah.
And lots of opportunities for other players to be seen, eh?
Particularly
that's-
with rugby.
Correct. Very good.
Think if you played the Hurricanes.
Well, I think the big word too is ownership. Like, you know, like you've talked about it a little bit, but those girls taking ownership now, they've had that experience, the young ones, the old ones, the middle ones, and, you know, the efforts that you guys have put into them for them to step up now and turn around and give back.
Awesome, Eddie. We'll go to Tia, and then following Tia will be Tracy. Team?
My question is, what was a highlight of your coaching career, and why, and how do you think this was a highlight? How did you get to there?
Go with.
Boss, wouldn't it? I think for me, my highlights always just come back to watching players who I've had the privilege of working with have success. So, I think back to pre-Barbarians game, had a lock who I'd worked with at a provincial level, came up to me, had just been in the game. It was Money Centre versus Tonga, and she came over to me just chuffed as, and at the start of the year didn't even play lock or know anything about that position, and big smile on her face, and said to me, I ran all the lineouts for our team and for my country. And so for me, seeing someone have success and knowing that I've been a part of that is where I get my highlights from. So been lots of little moments like that, but that's probably one that stands out for me.
You're on mute, Vance. Were you pointing at someone?
Yeah, I'm trying not to talk. Hags and then Wes. Let's go.
I suppose very, very similar to Whit, really. It's you certainly you remember your trophies, etc., that you win in the competitions, etc., and that's pretty cool. But it's the little moments when I was at the Dunedin Rugby Club's 150th Jubilee this year, which was an awesome weekend, and caught up with a lot of old people. A lot of people, not old people, because I was the old person. A lot of people that I'd coached and played with, and it's when a person comes up to you and says that you made a difference, and that's the pieces that become your highlights, because they're probably mature enough to say it because they're a bit older and they feel comfortable in saying it, and it's from the heart. And I think we're all in this for different reasons, but most of us, I'm sure, a common reason would be is that because we care and we do want to make a difference, and I think that's the wonderful thing about New Zealand rugby coaches. I know I was talking to Chris Boyd in Northampton when we were away on tour, and he said the big difference he's noticed from New Zealand to the UK is the quality of coaching, the quality of people that actually coach. So I'm a firm believer that we are really, really lucky in this country about the quality of people that we have, and like we have here tonight. So when people tell you that, you're doing a half decent job, and that becomes a bit of a highlight that you look back of and quite happy to share with people.
Yeah, I think we're all motivated by similar stuff, although I do like winning. I remember coaching Auckland Marist back in 2003, I think, and I had a young first five there who hadn't played for the Black Ferns yet, and I took her out for a couple of kicking sessions, and I wasn't that flash at kicking myself, but when she made the Black Ferns, I felt like I was part of that, like I'd helped her along the way. That always stayed with me. I remember coaching the Turbos, and should have forgotten his name now. Terrible with names, but one of our props made the Māori All Blacks. He rang me and said, he's made the Māori All Blacks, so that buzzes me. It buzzes me when Stephanie Mckenzie in a Zoom call says, I've seen Wes do this, and he's really good with relations with players. That to me is a massive win. So those are the things that buzz me when I feel I've made a difference in other people's lives, and I suppose help someone along the way. I know on tour, I had a one-on-one with a player, and when we finished, the laptop didn't open up on that one. She got up, she said, "Look, can I give you a hug?" And that's a special moment. That's when you've touched someone, and they want to do well, and they feel like you're helping them. So those are the moments you think about when you lose 4 games in a row. Really, you think, I have made a difference here and there, and I've tried to help someone else.
You guys are too cool. And I think those stories are really, really special. So following Tracy is Fiona, because they're both North Harbour, but also I just want to just acknowledge how influential coaches you are, or as coaches in people's lives, and maybe it's not highlighted often enough, but you just never know the difference that you do make to people, because we are in the business of people. So kia kaha. Tracy.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the game progressing, and being out of that international game for 2 years, it probably has progressed quite a bit. And what can we do as coaches in New Zealand, probably engaging with you guys about how we're coaching the game now, and what you're wanting from us as coaches to start delivering to get a different kind of game, I guess. And I can see that a lot of the stuff that's being played at NPC is very similar to what used to happen, but then some of the teams are stepping up now, are changing the game, and I think those changes could be implemented across. So it'd be good feedback around that.
I'm going to jump in first here, Wes, and Tracy. The biggest thing that I've noticed that we don't do very well in New Zealand compared with the Northern Hemisphere sides is kick a ball. And we talk about playing this beautiful game down here where we run and we catch and we pass and we can do all sorts of fancy things. But the reality is now the game has evolved where we need to be good at kicking. And Wes kept saying, we've had 11 lineouts inside our own 40, couldn't get out of our own half, and there were a variety of reasons for that. Whereas the French were, pinning us down with little deft kicks and putting the ball in the air and territorial kicks, etc. So the biggest thing that I would like to see us, not the biggest thing, but one of the biggest things, is that we develop our women to be better at kicking a rugby ball. It's not necessarily a natural skill for anyone to do, but I remember being on the Gold Coast one year, and there was this little school team up. We're staying in Runaway Bay, and this little school team was up from Victoria for a weekend, and they were staying in the same complex as us. And I got up in the morning, and I think it was a Canterbury pre-season trip, and the Canterbury boys just throwing the ball around, and these little 7 and 8 year olds were getting out and punting the ball with their hand, and then drop punting the ball to each other, just like it was a natural thing to do. And it was basically just because they grew up with it and they learned how to kick from day dot. So that just showed me that we can get our people learning how to kick and kick effectively. So I'd love to see our women embrace the kicking of a rugby ball more often. I'm not saying at the expense of scoring tries and shifting the ball around, but it's an area which we need to grow if we want to be better at the international level.
Wes, have you got anything to add there? I just want to say I agree.
we all
Everyone was thinking.
yeah, just from me, sorry, I always tell little stories, but I remember going to Black Ferns camp at the start of 2020 and asking the players if they had to give a ratio to how much attacking skills they'd done that year or in the last year versus tackling or defensive skills, what would the ratio be like, roughly? And one of the PUs said 100% attacking skills, no tackling, no defense at all at that stage. And I think that's probably pretty common in New Zealand. We love playing with the ball. We love looking at the attack and all that. But it would really help the defense coach out if we did some defense at all levels of the game, particularly tackling.
Okay, Fiona, do you want to come in with yours?
Yeah, I'll be quick. But John, the last 5 years, I've been telling my kids, don't kick the ball away. You lose possession.
Yeah.
These are kids though. But yeah, that was pretty obvious in those games, how their kicking was definitely high. For you guys, the three of you, do you guys have a mentor? Are you guys okay? Yeah.
I'll jump in on this one first, so these other two have a think about that. I'm really lucky to be part of a couple of programs through Te Hāpaitanga, which is a high performance sport New Zealand program that's currently running, and I'm also in the position I am as coach intern through World Rugby. So through both of those spaces, I have a number of people who I work with, and I'm lucky to have these two here and Glenn, who are I see them as mentors as well. So, but lucky to work with people like Alex Mckenzie and RJ Smith. I don't know if you've ever run into them and the stuff that you do, but and then having, I think, really cool as well, we got challenged to have a mentor outside of rugby. So for one of the projects I'm doing at the moment, I'm connecting with Marianne Delaney-Hoschek, who's the coach of the tactics. So that's quite cool to have an insight from someone outside of rugby too. There you go. There's your think time, boys. You're up.
I have a number of people, obviously, that I can catch up with, and New Zealand Rugby does a great job in having people for us to connect with, and we have a number of Zoom calls where we share information. What's mentioned Alex Mckenzie, he's great for us and sharing ideas and bouncing ideas off, etc. But also, like Wes and Glenn in particular. Like I know Wes and I, we chat a lot about the game and support each other just in different ways. So I think certainly, I suppose when times get difficult, I try and put the game in perspective a little bit as well, and just compartmentalize my life and go, well, actually that hasn't gone so well today, but I've got this other part of my life over here that is okay, and and certainly put my energy into that. So sort of dealing with downtimes can be challenging, and having mentors and being able to put things into perspective, I find easier now than what I did when I was younger.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got mentors, and someone asked a question earlier about advice to your younger self, and that was going to be one of my answers, like find a mentor. I've been extremely fortunate. I had Daryl Suasua, who was coaching at the same club as me when I was starting out, and in fact, when I coached their club team, we lost the final. I had 12 Black Ferns in the team, and I remember Daryl ringing me up, and he talked to me for about just under 2 hours, just under 3 hours, which is not, I know now it's not that impressive for Daryl, but at the time, it took him 3 hours to convince me to go back to coaching, because we'd lost that final. I said I was never going to coach again, and if he hadn't spent that time ringing me, I wouldn't be coaching now probably. So, and then after that, I was lucky enough to have Dave Rennie at the Turbos, who's now coaching Australia. So Rennes was massively influential for me. And when I was doing my practicum, I remember Wayne Smith, who was the All Blacks coach at the time, he presented to us on the course. And then when he finished presenting, he came and sat next to me, by coincidence, and he stayed for the next 2 days to learn what he could from us. So that had a big influence on me, but it also meant I struck up a good relationship with Smithy. So I still ring him now. And then, if any of you know Mike Cron, like when I was coaching fielding in high school, I rang him in Christchurch, said, Chrono, I need help with my scrum. And he said, well, just book me a flight. I've just been so lucky to have really good mentors. So if you don't have one, get one. And Stephanie, if you need me to come down to your training in Horowhenua,
Oh, no, she's muted. So come up to Mahurangi, Wesley. Come up here.
Where's Mahurangi?
It's an hour north of the Harbour Bridge in Auckland.
Oh.
Beautiful country club.
Oh.
Beaches, bush.
He's He's free next Wednesday, all right?
Oh, sweet it. Well, oh, boy, you're coming.
Mahurangi High School is the
College.
school that college is the school that Ruahei attended Wesley Clark. So
Oh,
just FYI.
Correct.
Yeah. And by the way, Dave Rennie, Mike Cron, Wayne Smith, I mean, name dropping there. Guys, hit up Wesley if you want to have a one-on-one with those guys. Susie and then Steph, and then back to Anna.
Yeah, I think you're forgetting that you've got a Northlander on the group, and if you want to start comparing beaches and you know, things, we better have a chat later. All my questions keep getting taken. You guys are awesome at your questioning. I just want to mention, I can see, you know, coaches, you guys are hurting, and you know, it's not easy. It's coming through, you know, fairly loud and clear. You're competitive and really caring, and you put a lot into your players. I personally was so excited to see what the performance gap was between where we're at and where we need to be. I was just wondering if your selection process throughout the 4 games, obviously there was a plan, but you know, what was that selection plan, and were you wanting to end up with your best team for the last game?
Wesley?
Well, certainly the plan was to expose players, so there was always going to be a few caps and a few changes as we went through the tour. You know, some players didn't get to play at all, but you know, we wanted to see what the capabilities of some other players were, because we didn't have a chance to play any footy earlier in the year or even the year before to really see where players were at. I don't personally recall having a plan to have the best team on for the last game. I think we were getting pretty desperate by the last game to have a win, so probably influenced that decision making a little bit. But overall, the plan was to expose players to international rugby and find out what they've got, really.
We're also one of the challenges we had when Kelly Brazier's injury was a bit more than what we thought it would be. That hamstrung us a little bit in a couple of positions. So we were lucky to get Kelly onto the park in that last game. And when you're selecting a side, you've got to make sure you cover another position, just 9, and you've got to cover a 10. Then that doesn't leave a lot of people that only play in one position to be put on the bench. So people that go on the bench have to cover more than one position, generally speaking. And that was what we found in the backs. So it was really a case of trying to get the best players on the park that we thought could do the job. Certainly in the backs, that was the case. And we had some pretty outstanding players out wide. And also in the middle of the park. So we wanted to try and mix and match the best we could. Like Aisha, for example, I don't want to just use names so much, but Aisha, who you know, was pretty dynamic in our first 2 games, didn't get to play in the last game, but that was more a consequence of us selecting someone else. That meant that we couldn't have her on the bench, where she only played one position. So we encourage our players to try and have another position that they can play, and as a backup. Certainly, you know, their ability to be able to be more versatile certainly enables more chance of them getting selected.
And that'd be the case for, I guess, for World Cup as well. Like, although it's helpful that we're at home, so you can pull players in easily if injuries occur. But would that be the same sort of strategy for there?
We still need to have specialists, obviously, but outside of the specialists, then obviously a person that can play 10-12 or centre wing or wing fullback, rather than just I only play wing, gives us an ability to say, well, you're a much, you know, more viable option for us to have in our group than not.
Yeah.
Awesome, thanks, Susie. Whitney, you're good. We'll bring you in the next question. So Steph, over to you, and then we'll hear from you.
Wait, yeah, you guys have been pretty good in terms of answering questions, which has been really amazing. I tell my kids all the time that you got to be versatile, especially these, you know, I know they're only young 13, 14-year-olds, but key, I'm telling them tomorrow. So I think for me, and like we've got so many kids. I had 33 kids on paper for my youth team this year, which is amazing. Don't have a female team at our school. The thing it comes down to is resource coaches. Like, how do we get, I'm going to be specific, more backs coaches? Like, how can we get people more involved? You know, like, I think from top down, it would be cool to see some initiatives going on. Because it is pretty hard when you're trying to get do all the mahi. We didn't get any treats this year, but it's just hard doing it by yourself without any support and giving them no opportunities, limited opportunities, because we don't have the coaches. How do we get coaches? I'm all about the how, not the what. It's the how.
I think one of the strategies you can try, and I'm not sure what it's like where you are, but quite often people don't want to commit for a whole season. So if you can get more people to commit less time, that could work. So the local rugby club will have a first 5, I guarantee it. And if you ask them to come down for one session and
every now and then.
Yeah, every now and then. You don't want them to mix up. You don't want too many people doing too many different things, but you can give them some sort of framework, or maybe he just works with the teams. That'll take some pressure off you, and then you might get a halfback and to just help with the 9s to take some pressure off you. So I think asking a lot of people for a little bit of time rather than a few people for a lot of time is a strategy that could work.
It was a bit hard. The other resource coach was coaching the other school, so I didn't ask him.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think that's a good strategy. Thank you.
It's a hard one, because we do have a lack of coaches as it is, and you know, across the board with sports, and then you come to the women's game and it's even harder. So yeah, I feel you on that one, Stephanie. Anna.
Cool. So my question is to all three of you. So as a coach, what is the key thing that you have learned from this tour? So from a coach, like as a coach.
It's a good question, Anna. Love it.
Thought it might be a good one to wrap things up on.
Yes, beautiful.
Good thinking faces.
Go Whit.
Yeah, come on, Whit.
True paper, scissors, rock. Who goes first on this one? I don't know. If someone else has their answer ready, I genuinely don't know yet.
Oh, look, there's so many. Like, you can't beat experience would be front of mind for me. Like, we had 11 and our pack got bullied. And experience is hard to come by. So it's not like there was a new learning for me, but seeing it in action. I mean, one of the games we picked 2 under-20s players, and with them, I think we had 4 under-20s in the squad in the team at one stage. I can't remember the last time the All Blacks picked 4 under-20 players, and we had 3 debutants in the forward pack playing with 2 others that were playing their 3rd game for the Black Ferns, and they got bullied. And there's no hiding from that. So I think it was a good reminder for me that you can't buy experience.
Any thoughts on how you might combat that moving forward?
Well, hopefully Super Rugby OPICI will help us to condense some of our talent. So, you know, we've got 14 provincial teams, so that spreads our talent around quite a bit. So condensing that up. We've also got a pretty good test schedule next year, some of it against teams that ranked lower than us. So hopefully it's a good stepping stone before we get into the teams that are ranked above us at the moment. So I think more games together, condensing it up. And I don't know how much is out around the hubs and stuff yet, Hag, so I won't say too much, but certainly condensing our talent into smaller groups would be a good start for us.
I think, Anna, for me, the learning was that we a little bit behind the 8 ball in terms of game understanding and how to play the game to win the game. Tactical awareness of the French and the English was pretty good, and we struggled to get ourselves out of it. And the way to overcome that is to put our players in those situations more often, so that they can experience how to get out of those situations, like how to get out of our own half. How do we defend the mauling lineouts? How do we build pressure? So those things, when we're playing club rugby or FPC games, a lot of the girls are never exposed to that. And when we see the French and the English playing each other probably 2 to 3 times a year, they're exposed to that much more frequently, and therefore they have to, I think Whitney said before around, getting girls to go and problem solve and give them scenarios and how do we find a way. So that can happen in the game as well, but you've got to be exposed to that more often, more regular, so that we can grow our players to deal with that. I know, for example, the All Blacks wouldn't want to play the best in the world if they had, an easy game against Fiji or someone as build up. So we have to create opportunities for our players to simulate those situations before the World Cup next year.
I think is skill set. So catch, pass, kicking, tackling. How do we get really good at all those things, and coach those in a way that they don't become mundane, but that they're things that people get really excited about doing well. And I think that goes hand in hand with that game sense stuff and the problem solving stuff that Hags is talking about. We've got to be really good at both those things.
Thank you.
Awesome, team. Hey, I just, I'm mindful of time. We're really, really grateful that we've had the time spent with our Black Ferns coaches, considering how tough the tour was, that you've just arrived back home, that you're in MIQ. So, we can't be more thankful. But also, real respect to you, because you did make the time to come and talk and give that time to our coaches, who are obviously sponges, who are asking all these great questions, because some of those questions were like, I need to think about that too. So before I give you guys just the last words to close us off, I just wanted to acknowledge our coaches. I hope that you've gone away and picked up some real gold there, and that you're able to enable your own coaching journey. We hope that there are more opportunities like this in the future. I'm really looking forward to Super Rugby Aupiki, the Rugby World Cup. There are a whole heap. That's a huge year ahead of us, and just hope that COVID just goes away, because it hasn't been that great. So again, thank you to our coaches who are doing what you do for us. I love that some of those questions around how can we help you, what are some of the things that we can do in our game that can assist some of the next level players. The culture, mentoring was probably one of the biggest things I took away, how important that is, and a variety of people that you can lean on, which is really important. So without further ado, we will wrap up our session, and I'll throw it over to our experts just to have their last words of wisdom that you want to close off. But again, just, Tawhitai lava, malo lava, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, guys. Certainly some of the questions, all the questions were awesome and made me think a little bit about the tour and reflecting on some of the things that I hadn't thought about, which was awesome, because I need to put that into a bit of a folder in my mind to say, okay, well, how do I change that? How do I move forward in that space? So appreciated that, and also appreciate the fact that we've got all you people on the line here that are going to be part of the game and for the future, and we need people like you doing that, because yes, we've got a World Cup next year, but we've got a whole time ahead of us for women's rugby to continue to grow, and you're all going to be part of that. So thanks very much, and good luck with your careers.
We're having a steer off with me. Look, from me, firstly, I just want to encourage you to enjoy your coaching. I'll probably sit here a little bit almost jealous of you guys and the fact that you can still coach with a lot of freedom. You can still try a whole lot of stuff. You can do so without as much pressure as potentially we're under with media and all that sort of stuff. So, man, it's a cool thing to do, and just want to encourage you to enjoy your coaching. And just reflecting on that last question a little bit more, one of the things I learned on tour was, even though Whitney's saying she's pretty humble, they're saying, she's a forward helping out with the backs. A number of backs wanted to sit down with her and have one-on-ones. And, even though Whitney's knowledge is excellent, it wasn't about her knowledge. It was about the relationship that she built and, the ear that she gives them and the advice and all that. So just reiterated to me the classic coaching saying, they don't care what you know until they know that you care. So, and that's actually the cool part of coaching. Showing people you care, being vulnerable, helping them be better humans. It's a bloody cool thing you're doing, and thank you for it.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, look, just reiterate what these guys have said. Thanks so much for time and all that you do. And Ferns has got my number. I'm really happy to get a call if you've got any other questions. I'm in NYQ for another, 4 days, and not a lot to do, so feel free to reach out. But genuinely, anytime you want to connect, I'm really happy to be on the other end of the phone. And keep doing what you're doing, enjoying it, and thanks for your time.
You are too cool, Whitney. All right, there's the offer. It's been laid on the table. Let us know. We've got the contacts. But once again, thank you again, everyone, for your time. Go and get some dinner. Look at the nutritionist, Fiona. And hey, 4 days in lockdown. I might call you guys. All right then. Ka kite, everybody. Have a good night.
Thanks, Ferns.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you.